Let's do this. So I found this gem. And we need to pause our favorite music. I found this gem yesterday for some reason, and I couldn't even remember that I had done this a while ago. But what was pretty interesting to me is that even 10 months ago when this was done, we were close. We were very close. Now, since then, a couple of the times have sort of like become more exact, right? And I'm gonna try to see if I can fix them online with you all. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to share this document, let's say, and let's see. Oh, but I could probably bring it up here. Yeah. So I'm gonna try to do this while I handle this. But a couple of things were very interesting yesterday, starting with the fact that a few comments were made on a different show, and I wanted to bring that up too. As everybody's talking about, well, let's debunk this, let's debunk that. Well, let's not debunk anything. We're just going to make comments on top of comments, and hopefully everybody will get the message, and then taking it from there, we can all agree on certain things. And if we do that, then we'll put together our heads and we'll solve this, right? This is how it works. So it's all about a collaboration, and not so much who's right or who's not. A lot of people do not have the challenge, or not the challenge, but if you will, the what do you call that? The expertise to actually debunk somebody else. But we can certainly come together and see if together we can do this, which is the idea of collaborating. So good morning, everybody. I am going to be trying to do this as quick as possible because there's a lot going on and I don't want to miss a thing. And I'm not sure if Lana is already out. I know that she's been delaying her live today and I don't want to miss it. If it's about Joan O'Keefe, I want to be there first, front, center, and I want to do it with her, watch her, and corroborate and confirm everything that I have. So let's listen to this.
Okay, and this shows the calls that you made to John's phone or you received from John's phone on or between at or between 12:14 a.m. and 12:50 a.m. I want to direct your attention to those time frames, correct?
Correct.
All right, I want to start at the bottom. It may go in reverse chronological order.
Okay.
I think it does. At 12:14, it shows that you called John O'Keefe and that call was answered. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
At 12:18 a.m., it shows that John O'Keefe called your phone and that was answered as well.
Correct.
And then at 12:29 a.m., you also called John O'Keefe's phone and y'all had a short conversation as well. Is that right?
No.
That the record shows, I think it shows, pardon me. Unknown, correct? In terms of whether it was missed or answered?
Excuse me, can you repeat that?
Sure, 12:29, I want to concentrate on the 12:29 a.m. call.
Okay.
That one in the Celebrite extraction, it shows in terms of whether the call was answered or not, the status is unknown, correct? On the last page?
Yeah.
Second from the second row from the top.
At 12:29. Unknown, yes.
Unknown. However, you've already acknowledged that y'all did have a short conversation on that 2:29.
No.
29 call, correct?
We didn't speak at 2:29. We spoke at 12:14 and we spoke at 12:18. We never spoke at 12:29.
So you're indicating that
Didn't talk to him, but somebody answered his phone.
Or otherwise. Went to voicemail, something.
To 12:29, yes.
Okay. I want to show you a document. Well, let me ask it this way. According to this, there were 6 more calls between your phone and John O'Keefe's phone.
Correct.
Count it, correct? 1, 2, 3,
Um,
5, 6. And that's before, or that's up to 12:50 a.m. Is that right?
correct.
I'd like to show you another document. Or if I could approach briefly.
I'm going to stop it right here. I wanted to come in real quick just to give a little bit of background in regards to this. As everybody knows, a lot of stuff happened that day, and there were a lot of people calling each other. Coincidentally, the 1229 call that Jennifer McCabe placed to John O'Keefe, the only way that it makes sense to me was that at 1229, or a few seconds or maybe a minute prior to, Ryan Nagel, Sarah Mason, and Ricky D'Antano had already passed Karen Reed and seen her alone on her SUV with her hands in 10 and 3, or 10 and 2,
10 and
whatever
2.
they called it.
So I'm going to pause it right here because this is pretty interesting to me. This was done, recorded, and it was a live that I did back to maybe 10, 11 months ago by now. But what strikes me is how the information that is out there that has been publicly shared with everybody is a little bit different and sort of has adjusted, if you will, the times and like what happened simultaneously while other things were happening, right? So we now know that the call was actually at 12:29:44 seconds. That's the time when she called John O'Keefe's phone. Now, what's interesting is that after this happened, it's also public record that at 12:29:30, the Bluetooth had disconnected from John's phone. So it explains why Jen was able to make a call at 12:29:44 seconds to John O'Keefe if the Lexus had already left, right? Because if the Lexus leaves, then it's disconnected from the Bluetooth. So her call to John's phone is not going to go to the Lexus. It's going to go and ring at John's phone. Now, it makes perfect sense because it takes about 6 to 7 minutes from Fairview to One Meadows. So it does make sense that Karen left by 12:29:30. And at 12:29:44, perhaps Jen noticed that the Lexus left, and that's why she started ringing John's phone. So I am changing this timeline because I didn't have the seconds register there, and I'm going to update it live as I go just to keep track of it. But let's continue to see what else. And yes, Sarah Mason, Ricky D'Antano, and Ryan Nagel left prior to Karen leaving. They had passed Karen and saw her alone. They didn't see anybody else. They just saw Karen alone inside her Lexus with the dumb lights on. That's what they said on trial. And they left before she did. Now, there's going to be a couple of interesting things that I didn't know back when I did this, and I know now. So that's going to be really cool to just adjust and fix as we tag along.
They left. Karen Reed left right after that. It had to be somewhere around 12:29, if not seconds prior.
because that triggered Jen, who was looking outside the window, to grab the phone and start calling John. What we don't see is that simultaneously, right until the time that Karen left, she was also calling him. So there were calls going in and out at the same time from Jen to John's cell phone. The last steps that John took were not from 12:31 a.m. to 12:32. And we're going to look at that log to get the exact minutes and the exact seconds. There's only shy of 24 seconds. That's the time period that it took to travel 83 point something feet from the front door to the flagpole area and bring the phone outside. Everybody's asking, why bring the phone there? Why bring the phone? That was the last known place where everybody who was keeping an eye on Karen saw Karen and her Lexus parked outside. And that's where they brought the phone from 12:31 to 12:32. That was a trajectory of 24 seconds in the cold.
That's accurate.
24 seconds. For
Okay.
John to have made that trajectory himself, it's impossible, judging by the injuries that he had sustained from where? From 12:21:10 a.m. to 12:24 a.m. 3 minutes and 19 seconds. That's the entire time that John was inside 34 Fairview. If everybody's looking at the same phone records that everybody's looking at, everybody can see that there is absolutely no activity from 12:24 until 12:31. 7 minutes elapsed almost, or approximately, between the 12:24 mark until the 12:31 mark. Whoever is saying that Jones' last steps were from 12:31 to 12:32, 24 seconds, that doesn't make any sense in any logic mind whatsoever.
Yeah. So
His last 3.19 minutes alive were from 12:21 to 12:24. At 12:29, Jen had called John a couple of times. And one of the last times that she called was at 12:29:44, and that call was answered.
but it wasn't answered by John. And that's, it's funny because she was asked exactly this question during trial, and Alan Jackson made her feel very uncomfortable. And he asked her, when you called John O'Keefe at 12:29:44, and if I remember correctly, she said, I never spoke to John after 12:18:44. But she didn't say who answered that call. But Alan Jackson never asked her, then who answered the phone call that was taken for 7 seconds? You were speaking to somebody for 7 seconds. So who answered that call? So it's almost like what's going on here? If it's her phone that is calling John O'Keefe at 12:29:44, and don't forget, she deleted over 200 and something phone calls from her phone before an extraction was done on her cell phone, but they did still show on John O'Keefe's end. So when they did the extraction on John O'Keefe's phone, they were able to see how many calls did Jen made to John, right? So I'm gonna show. Let's just do this instead. Let's flip to this for a minute, and let's listen to something here.
Prohibit people in Massachusetts from investigating crimes properly. The snow,
Of course.
but I do not let snow bother me. And here, there's really not much on the ground at all.
Oh my God.
No, and it won't
Okay,
last. It'll be here
okay,
just a
okay, wait. Yeah, I don't have the patience. for
and
it.
then loaded onto the stretcher and then into the ambulance. You can see Jen doing her magic that morning. There's actually a lot more video footage, which is interesting to sort through. And I spent a lot of time on that this weekend because of the step counting that morning, trying to figure out who the hell has this phone in the morning.
So before we do
A
that,
time on CF McCarthy's in the first.
Snow bother me. And here, there's really not much on the ground at all.
here's the
No, and
question
it
from
won't last.
Loophole
It'll
Lawyer.
be here just
Let's listen to the question from Loophole Lawyer.
probably a few days after this because it's going to warm up probably pretty quickly in New York. But in New England, they may have it for a little longer still. So it's a little colder up there.
Yeah.
sure.
So where we going today? I mean, we're covered a lot on Friday. It's been the weekend.
Yeah.
I'm not sure like anything crazy has come out. It's good to see. Well, actually, we do have the new documents in the FOIA request, and
Mhm.
we saw that Corey has uploaded one. I did it for her, but this is all her work. It's nothing to do with me. And it was interesting to see a high def video of Karen and John at the bar, which I don't think we saw the entire thing at trial, but we
Right,
definitely didn't
that's
see it
right.
this close. And I
Mhm.
told Emily and you in the group that I was getting the chills watching
Emily, you
it
and
initially
the
because
group.
it was really freaky to me to see how close we were to
Mhm.
John, to see
Mhm.
the phone that we keep obsessing over, to finally actually see it clearly
Mhm.
and things like that. So what was your opinion when you were watching the CF McCarthy video?
So we're asking for an opinion, right? Because there's no issues at CF McCarthy's. John and Karen are not fighting at CF McCarthy's. They're actually exchanging conversations with Camerano. They're ordering drinks. They look like they're hanging out. They're having a great time. There's no issues there. But listen to what the opinion is.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? I had done an analysis of that video way back because the Commonwealth spent a lot of time on CF McCarthy's in the first trial because Lally used that footage to count Karen Reed's drinks. So he was very focused on it. And so because of that, we had to be very focused on it, although it was obviously not anywhere near as good a copy, which I don't understand. I don't understand why they wouldn't have used the copy that we have now. And that seems to be true in a lot of the videos, is we have 2 dash cam shots now for all of the cruiser cams, which is interesting. We have a broader perspective. You can actually see more of John when he's being attended to by EMS and then loaded onto the stretcher and then into the ambulance.
Okay, I'm gonna have to make a pause. We've always have had those 2 views of the 2 dash cam cruisers. Like they came out after trial 1. That was part of the evidence that came out. What's coming out today is more clear, almost like it's a full length of, rather than the pieces and bits that they shared the first time, but we had already have that prior.
You can see Jen doing her magic that morning. There's actually a lot more video footage, which is interesting to sort through. And I spent a lot of time on that this weekend because of the step counting that morning, trying to figure out who the hell has this phone in the morning. And you actually uncovered some
Oh
interesting
my God,
pieces. I'm sure this isn't new, but it was new to me because I just am not a cell phone expert and don't spend as much time on it.
we know
But that there are 2 sort of markers of steps, right? There's the steps and the number of steps that somebody has taken on the phone. But then there's also
So what was your opinion on the CF McCarthy's video?
the distance. And that's interesting because, you have the steps, but we know, I mean, the other day or last night, Emily did an experiment where she literally put her phone under a pillow and just pushed on it and was able to create steps, right? So you can actually create steps in a variety of different ways. But if there's
About
distance,
distance.
then we know that the phone is actually moving. It's not static, right? So that actually was a really helpful discovery.
So, well, I guess we can sum up that her opinion was interesting, right? And then yeah. So, okay, so
So to
we
enlighten
continue with
everyone else,
this.
Emily all of a sudden says, "Oh, I was laying in my bed and I was doing CPR on my phone, and somehow it registered step gets to 34 Fairview in 4 minutes from the library. If you go on Google, that's the way you should go. And that's how long it should take. And she got
So I guess Loophole Lawyer hasn't been in Canton, and not even once. But anybody who has knows that from the waterfall, you can get to 34 Fairview in about 4 minutes. And this is not even speeding. This is like following the speed limits around town, which suck because they're pretty slow. But you can literally get there. So let's give them 5 for the benefit of the doubt, and let's
sort of focus on the time that everybody left and account to an approximate time that everybody would have gotten there, right? So, but I give him the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't look like he's been there, but, and that's why when he sees the videos and sort of starts calculating the times, he now finds it like amusing that anybody can get to Fairview in 4 minutes from the waterfall.
They're exactly right. Then I'm like, fuck, well, if Karen Reed crossed at 12:16 plus 4 minutes, she should be at the house at 12:20. And then I start to panic. And this is what I spoke to you about confirmation bias. He arrived at 12:24. I can't figure out how, because even if you took a different route, it was only like a minute longer. So I actually told you that I started to pen Emily a sincere apology for yelling at her about your confirmation bias is so real. Because like all I wanted to do was to prove, yeah, and it's funny. And then I remember, I didn't remember, like I was panicking. I was taking all the time to study it. Eventually she does pass the road. Corey Hopkins did a little graph, which is fine. She passes the turn initially, but then she makes another wrong turn and then a U-turn.
So one of the roads that Karen missed was Fairview. You need to understand that if you are going the opposite direction rather than going through Chapman, and I know it's hard for some people because a lot of people have not gone to the area, but you can look at it in the map, just like Loophole Lawyer has. If you look at the two different options or routes that are available to get from Waterfall to 34 Fairview, the quickest way to get there is through Chapman Road, right? If you go through Chapman, it's about 4 minutes, 5 minutes stops. If you go through the long way, you're gonna end up going around the opposite direction rather than through the library, and then you're going to end up at Cedar Crest and the corner of Fairview. If you happen to miss Fairview, which is going to be to the left-hand side, you're going to end up having to turn around, or what? What do you have to do if you pass Fairview? You got to do a 3.4 turn. That 3.4 turn means that you are going to come back again, and rather than going north, you're going to be coming south, and you're going to be making a right, which in theory, if you think about it, anybody who's making a right has to what? The right of way. But yet, Sarah Mason, Ricky D'Antano, and Ryan Nagel state that they gave them the right of way. It was their right of way. They were going right. The Ford F-150 that the three kids were traveling with had to stop and allow Karen and John to turn to their right, which was Fairview. And that happened, please take notes, 12:21 and 5 minutes. A little bit less than 5 seconds, I'm sorry. 12:21, almost 5 seconds. So Karen and John keep going, right? And then the three kids on the F-150 follow. That's what happens. That's normally what happens. Before Karen and John left, they saw both of them inside the Lexus SUV. Even from behind a car, you can clearly see, if you have the lights on, that there's a female and a male, both inside the Lexus. Female is driving, the male is the passenger. That there's no questions, there's no going around in circles here as far as that goes.
And I was able to plot out the actual course she took. And ultimately what we're going to see is that it took 9 minutes from the library to 34 Canton based upon the route that she took. So then it's like, oh, thank God I don't have to apologize to Emily, because this is the last thing I wanted to do.
So if you heard what he just said, and I'm going to try to bring it back a bit so you can hear it.
I was panicking. I was taking all the time to study it. Eventually she does pass the road. Corey Hopkins did a little graph, which is fine. She passes the turn initially, but then she makes another wrong turn and then a U-turn. And I was able to plot out the actual course she took. And ultimately what we're going to see is that it took 9 minutes from the library.
Actually, 9.95. 9 minutes and 95. So where do we see that? Because it is important, right, that we sort of see. Let's see if I can find it real quick. gonna see if I can track it down. And I should have had it up and prepared because to show you guys, but I haven't. So give me a sec. Let me see if I can do this real quick. Okay. So and okay, don't get antsy. I'm doing it as quick as I can. I should have had it prepared so we didn't have to lag about it. But it is very interesting to me how most of this information and the evidence was available back after trial 1. And it doesn't seem that they saw this information prior, or I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on. I really don't understand why this is like brand new and not something that they already knew or had. It doesn't make any sense to me. So if I look at the call logs and I'm pulling them up, I'm trying to find them on my phone so I can actually get the exact time in which I, give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. I know I need to back up the stuff. Here we go. If I find O'Keefe, here we go. Okay, so his phone traveled from 1209. Get it exactly. Hold on. Here we go. How can I show this? How can I show it? Can I share it somehow? Or I'm going to have to put it on the, am I going to have to put it on? How do I do this? How can I put this maybe as a picture? Okay, we're going to try a picture. But the important thing here is that from until 2105, 12/21/05, from 1209, let's take that back. From 12:11 and 9 seconds, John O'Keefe and Karen Reed were moving from the waterfall, trying to get 234 Fairview, and they arrived at the intersection. This is how specific and exact this matching all this data is. They arrived at 12/21/05 at the intersection of Cedar Crest and Fairview when Ricky Dentano, Sarah Mason, and Ryan Nagel gave them the right of way. And hold on. Let's see. Yep. So the travel time for both of them, that he's saying it was 9 minutes, is actually 9.95. And I wish I could show, I'm going to find a way to do this. Hold on. I'm going to find, oh, okay, I can upload it in Twitter. And yep, here we go. I'm going to save it. Save. And, or I can just save it to my files. Yeah, maybe I can bring it up. That could be. Hold on. That could be the way to do it. Perfect. So if they met Ricky, Sarah, and Ryan at 12:21:05, and they allowed them to go first, that means that by 12:21:10 they were stopped right in front of the mailbox, right? So let's see. And it was answered by somebody who was not John. It wasn't John who answered the phone, but the phone was identified. Its location, where the heck it ended up at, it was identified. Somebody retrieved that phone. Somebody grabbed that phone. And the panic mode was, get that phone out of here.
Somebody still
Throw it over there. Throw it over there. That's
Nobody
where he was
listens.
parked. And that's where somebody took it. In a 24-second rush, somebody took that phone outside the house and dropped it off by the flagpole, which was the last known location of the Lexus. It's the only thing that makes sense. Now,
And
everybody can have their own
so
theories.
let's try to
That's
do this.
just
I'm
my
gonna get out
theory.
and I'm gonna come
If
back
we
up.
listen to Jen, when she's asked about,
So I'm gonna delete this one and I'll come back.